Groupthink is when a group of people get together and start to think collectively with one mind. Sounds kind of okay, this unity of purpose, right? Wrong. Because with groupthink, the emphasis is on group cohesion and internal harmony, rather than accurate judgments. The group prioritizes conformity over independent critical thinking, so it's a disaster for good decision making. This is what you see when everyone just goes along with an idea or an action, rather than questioning what's happening and making up their own mind. It's the mentality we see in the Salem witch trials, or police officers in Nazi Germany, or people parroting nonsense about Hillary Clinton being a criminal just because they see their friends on Twitter saying so. In other words, it's another manifestation of our ape gene. Groupthink is humanity at its dumbest. It was first studied by psychologist Irving Yanis, and his studies noticed that in groupthink scenarios, group pressures led to a deterioration of, quote, mental efficiency, reality testing, and moral judgment, end quote. Groups affected by groupthink ignore alternatives and tend to take irrational actions that dehumanize other groups. A group is especially vulnerable to groupthink when its members are similar in background and when the group is insulated from outside opinions, so kind of like what we keep hearing about echo chambers and social bubbles. Now here's some interesting common signs of groupthink, as diagnosed by Yanis, and see how many of these you see him pop up in public discourse. Belief in inherent morality, because members believe in the rightness of their cause and therefore ignore the ethical or moral consequences of their decisions. And this can include Twitter mobs attacking someone who disagrees with their views from a belief of being morally superior while acting in the exact same intolerant and aggressive way they would usually condemn. Stereotype views of outgroups, another symptom. This helps dehumanize those who don't conform to the groupthink, so to remove the need to behave ethically towards them when the reprisals take place. This is obviously a classic Nazi tactic. Also, direct pressure on dissenters. Members are under pressure not to express arguments against the group's views. This has been going on more and more in academia, with the silencing of dissent, clear example. Self-censorship. Doubts and deviations from the perceived group consensus are not expressed because nobody wants to be an outsider, right? Then there's the illusion of unanimity. The majority view and judgments are assumed to be unanimous. And this one's interesting because it sort of reminds me of how blindsided we all were when the big elections in 2016 had their results come in. But also, we get this attitude that whatever belief there is, it's held by common consensus. But here's the thing, if even one person disagrees, say you, then there is no consensus. So what exactly is being enforced? And finally, there's self-appointed mind guards, members who protect the group and the leader from information that is problematic or contradictory to the group's cohesiveness. Groupthink especially happens within cohesive groups, like groups tied together by a common ideology, and when there is pressure to achieve unanimity, maybe to present a common front. It's disastrous to effective decision-making, but it can have life-threatening consequences too. Think about those Salem witch trials, or the Bush administration's decision to invade Iraq. A great fictional example is the movie 12 Angry Men, where the jurors just initially judged the accused as guilty because most of them just wanted to go home and nobody wanted to be the bad guy, keeping everyone there for these long deliberations. It took Henry Fonda's character to stand up and point out that the other jurors weren't thinking clearly, that they were just going with the flow, and the accuser's life was at stake. So what do we do? One of Yanis's recommendations is to always take on the role of devil's advocate. Be like Fonda, basically. We need to think critically, not accept received wisdoms, and be especially skeptical when we see everyone else agree on something. Unanimity is such a rare thing, so when we see it, that's the time to engage our curious God gene and start asking difficult questions. What if everyone else was wrong? What would that look like? It might be uncomfortable, and it won't make you popular initially, but your decision-making will be more effective for it. And hey, if you're like me, you can just bask in the warm glow of being right when everyone else is wrong.